I promised you I would only do a meta-analysis if there was some actual big changes. And boy did we see changes. For the data, we have a victory road that just ended with over 1,000 players and thousands of dollars in prize money on the line. A couple decently big limitless tournaments, and of course ladders, social media, vibes, and so forth. Now the first thing that we have to talk about is the dominance of Sneezler. Now obviously day one, people already knew that Sneezler and Sinistcha were kind of going to be like this reoccurring very strong core, followed by Basculegion, something like that. But we all knew Incineroar was the king of VGC. That's why Incineroar was also the #1 most played Pokemon on Champions for the longest time. Up till now. Currently, Sneezler has overtaken Incineroar. You can go into the battle data in your game. Sneezler is now more played than Incin. And it's not weird to see why. It's extremely fast fake out, fighting coverage is really good, Dire Claw can randomly scam you wins, and more importantly, Incin is actually a little oddly positioned sometimes. With all the Sneezlers running White Herb, suddenly Intimidate isn't that good. With a bunch of King Gambit running around, Intimidate can kind of be punished often. And there's even some other mons that are really hurtful for Incin that you'll see later on in the video. But I do have to caution you, because there have been moments like this where people are like, oh, Incin is doing worse, Incin is maybe a bit weaker, blah blah blah, and that's when Incin strikes. The moment someone dares to think that Incin is not the best mon in the format, and people drop their Defiant, they drop their White Herbs or whatever, Incin is right back. And don't forget, no one's saying he's bad right now, he's just #2 instead of #1 for the first time in this game. He is still on plenty of topping and winning teams. Now in terms of trends from the previous meta-analysis, something very interesting is happening. This Froslass balance team that I highlighted that was like popping up here and there is really solidifying. We had a couple more of them topping in big limitless stores, and more importantly, we had one topping in that massive Victory Road tournament. It was even second seed after Swiss. Now interestingly, it is running the Froslass King Gambit and Sneezler core that we've seen before, but it's not necessarily running the full Firewater Grass core anymore. So I guess people have noticed that while the Froslass King Gambit and Sneezler together are really oppressive, you don't necessarily need a Firewater Grass core together with it. That being said, a lot of the ones that have been doing well in the limitless tournaments are still running it. So we'll have to see which of the variants ends up being the solved one, but at least the one that has done the best in the biggest tournament is the one without a Firewater Grass. So yes, Froslass is still real. Next we have Scizor solidifying, and I could not imagine that I would be saying this, but basically the last analysis I highlighted, hey, there's some really good players playing these limitless tours and doing well with Scizor, and like multiple at the same time. That is weird, right? It was just a trend that was developing, and in this Victory Road tour, in the top cut, we had 2 Scizor, which is absolutely mind-blowing. This mon was very, very underrated at the start of the format, but if you saw me and the former world champion rating Mega Evolutions, he even said, hey, actually, I think Mega Scizor is underrated. He was very, very right. Now, in terms of new trends, we have the rise of Steel types. It's not completely new. Steel is a very strong typing. It also walls Floette, and it's basically the best defensive type in the game in general, but there's specific Steel types that are now starting to pick up. So the 2 big ones I wanted to highlight are Aegislash and Tinkaton. So Aegislash, of course, has a really, really good typing in Steel Ghost, because it can't get faked out, and Steel Ghost historically has been really, really strong into Sneezler. In Scarlet and Violet, for example, Goldengo was like the prime Sneezler killer, and so here Aegislash basically does the same thing. So when the top most used mon is Sneezler, of course Aegislash also gets a bunch better. It also has King's Shield, which is basically like a protect that also minuses your attack. It has priority. It's just a really solid mon. Now Tinkaton is also really interesting in that it has fake out, so suddenly if you don't want to run Incin on your team, maybe it just doesn't quite fit, but you still need a fake out, Tinkaton can be that fake out, and at the same time it can also be your Floette counter. Gigaton Hammer is absolutely insane. Finally, of course, in the good Steel types, you also have Corviknight picking up, but more on that one later. The next hot trend, of course, is subscribing. It turns out this trend is getting stronger and stronger. Every meta-analysis, it keeps on coming back, so hop on that trend right now, subscribe, and click the notification bell. Now, this one is maybe not being talked about as much, but these are the Undercover stars. And what do I mean by this? Actually, if you were paying attention before the Victory Road even, and I have been, you could check out Limitless Tours and check out the win rates of Pokemon. And if you checked out the win rates of Pokemon and checked for the highest win rate Pokemon, but that saw actual play, because sometimes if you check like win rate, some Pokemon might say they have a 100% win rate, but then it turns out only one person used them. So those don't really count. But if you start filtering for mons that are actually being used in decent numbers, then the highest win rate mons for the past few days have been both Corviknight and Milotic. Sometimes some other mon will be like one above them or something like that. And this is very recent because they did not have these win rates before. More importantly, we now see in these latest Limitless Tours and the Victory Road that these mons converted extremely well, with even 2 Milotic being in the finals of said Victory Road. So Milotic stonks right now are up majorly, and it's not hard to see why. I put a little Incineroar up there because both of these mons actually love facing Incineroar. Corviknight, of course, has the Mirror Armor ability, so you just mirror the Intimidate right back, while Milotic has the competitive ability, so it gets a special attack boost while being attack dropped, and it doesn't care about its attack being dropped. They both also have a lot of options in their movesets. Like, these mons are not solved. You don't need to play one specific set in your team. These mons can kind of like morph around what your team needs. They can self-heal, they can boost themselves, they have utility moves, they have damage, they can do whatever you need them to do. The Milotic in particular, like in the finals, were 2 completely different sets. We had one with Coil and Hypnosis, we had one with Icy Wind, there's Scald, there's Recover, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with these. Next we have Charizard X stonks going up. So not only has this mon been seeing more play, up from basically no play, like day 1, day 2, and so forth. We barely saw any Charizard X, maybe a little experiment here and there, nothing major, but we've actually seen it top Limitless Tours here and there, and now in the Victory Road, it actually got 2nd place. It's not completely hard to see why, like Tough Claws is a really good ability, and Fire Dragon is an amazing typing, because Dragon is an incredible typing. But the big issue with Dragons, of course, is that you fear Floette like no other, and it's one of the most played Megas. But when you are Fire Dragon, suddenly you're a dragon, with all the pros of being a dragon, without a fear of fairy. And that's a really big deal. It also walls Charizard Y, of course. So like Charizard Y trying to click Solar Beam or Heat Wave into you. I mean, good luck, better luck next time. Now I want to nuance this one a little bit, because it's not like Rotom Wash is seeing way more tops or anything like that from before, but I'm noticing extremely good players playing this a little bit more. It still has all of the things we've been talking about in previous analysis videos, and then it kind of like went down. We talked about that in the previous video as well. It wasn't fully gone, just less people being on that hype, and I just noticed some good players that I respect playing it more and more again. It's possible that Rotom Wash, more so than Rotom Heat, is actually getting and staying real. Also wanted to highlight a new type of team, and that is the Blastoise team. At the start of the format, okay, everyone knew like Mega Blastoise, sure, it's playable, but it's not that crazy. But lately, the fact that this thing has Shell Smash and Water Spout has actually seen some success on the ladder. There's quite some people in Master Ball and higher Master Ball using like Tailwind or Trick Room together with Water Spout, some with Shell Smash, some without. And it's the kind of team that's really hard to counter in a closed team sheet environment when it's just best of 1, because you don't know exactly what the Blastoise is going to do or how they're going to do it. Like if they are going to actually Trick Room or actually Tailwind or Shell Smash or Sableye with Rain Dance, Talonflame, Tailwind, there's a lot of options, and covering for all of them is really hard when you don't know what they're going to click exactly. That's why I'm calling it the ladder scam artist. It doesn't mean it's bad or anything, it's solid for sure, but it's just way better in that type of environment than it would be in an open team sheet type of tournament, and the results so far also show that. Now next I want to kind of pat myself on the back, because the past 2 episodes I've been asking, where is Trick Room? I think Trick Room is due for like a really solid result, and here it is in this Victory Road top cut, in the first seat after Swiss. So this is the person that was doing the absolute best during Swiss. We do have a hard Trick Room team, or well, hard-ish, you know. Technically the Charizard in there is still pretty fast, but beyond that it's all slow mons. We have a Hatterene, a Farigiraf, a Torkoal, a Kingambit, hard-ish Trick Room with double Sun. Very interesting to see a Hatterene without an Indeedee as well. So yes, Trick Room is real. Of course, it's weird to pilot. There's a lot of things you have to play around, but it is absolutely playable this format. To follow Floette, and now I know this one will get some people, you know, twisting their panties and so forth, but basically, Floette has been converting slightly less well than before. So if you go into the Limitless Tours from the start of the format, you would see see that Floette was hovering around like 57, 59, 60% win rates in these tournaments, which is extremely high for a mon with a lot of use. Because if a mon is used a lot, the win rates are usually going to go closer to 50 as more and more people mess up. It's very hard for a mon with a bunch of play to have a 100% win rate, because that would mean that everyone's somehow a winner in a tournament. That's impossible. However, lately, going from that 60-ish%, the Floettes in Limitless Tours have been going towards 50%. And that 10% is actually massive. Now, that doesn't mean Floette is bad, but if we check out the victory road here, we had 3 Floettes in the top cut, the asymmetrical top cut, which means that a few players didn't place as high as the others in Swiss and now need to duke it out before they get into the top 8 bracket. And all 3 Floettes were in that asymmetrical cut, and none of them made it to top 8. Yeah, so 3 of them got to the cut and then fell out instantly again. Again, it doesn't mean Floette is bad or anything. What this, together with the worst conversion rate the last few days says, though, is that a lot of people are ensuring that they always have a plan for specifically this mon, purely because it truly is just the best mon in a vacuum. And this is a bit of a warning, because in past formats, when the clearly best mon has suddenly done bad or less good than some people may have expected from it, that's when people start going, oh, this thing is a fraud. You know, we've seen it with Raging Bolt Balance in Reg F. People going, oh, Bolt Balance is actually a fraudulent team. It's actually not as good as people were saying. Or CSR Zama in Reg I. It's like, oh, CSR Zama, pretty fraudulent. You know, it didn't even top Milwaukee. It's actually not that good. And that's when that team comes back. Everyone's suddenly like, oh, it's not that good. I don't need to cover for it quite as much. Oh, in my matchup prep, I'm not checking for it quite as much. And that little bit of breathing room, you give them an inch and they are right back to dominating. Every single time. With these types of mons and cores and teams. Time will tell what will happen here, of course, because Floette right now, I don't think anyone dares to call it a fraud just yet, except for that one guy on top takes. But just right now, the results have under-delivered a little bit, and if people dare to shit-talk Floette, just know it is dominating Indianapolis. Now for some replica teams. First of all, we have the top 16 team from Michael Kelsch / Michael Der Beste. You have the ID here, you have with Komo, Garchomp, Gengar, Tyranitar, Tinkaton, a pretty aggressive team. And of course, featuring the Tinkaton, we talked about those stongs going up, so I also wanted to show you here in a team. Then we had another top 16 team from Toller Webb, who is a really strong player, with Gardevoir, Rotom, Maushold, Talonflame, Kingambit, Garchomp, but of course the Gardevoir is like the most interesting part in there, in my opinion. And then finally we have Seawolf Mikes, a very good player, kind of known for laddering a shit ton on Showdown and dominating like online tournaments a bunch. 24th out of 1,039 players is crazy, and it's with like a pretty typical Floette team, but so if you wanted to have an updated Floette balance, you can use that as well. Hope you found this interesting. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ciao.